It's time for the Coach Groves Show, where we sit down with the head coach of the Darlington Tigers football team and talk about all things Darlington School football. Now we go live to Matt Davis and Ian Griffin, who are standing by with Coach Wayne Groves.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coach Groves Show, where we talk Darlington football with the head Tiger himself, Wayne Groves. It's Region Play Week, Matt. It's a big week, but we're going to talk about last week's game to kick things off.
Absolutely. Of course, we got the coach here with us. And first of all, Coach, how's your week going, man?
It's been really good. We had a great film session on Saturday, which really started this week, and then introduced a game plan with the kids on Monday. We had good practice on Monday, better practice today, and an excellent practice on Tuesday. So we're trending in the right direction. We're working on some things that we need to kind of shore up going into region play, and I think we'll be ready to play a good ball game this Friday.
Well, we're going to get into that in just a little bit and talk about the matchup in great detail. But first things first, let's rewind and talk about last week's game a little bit, Coach. It was a back-and-forth battle up at NW Whitfield. Came up a little bit short in the end result, but your guys continued to fight until the very end. And I know you got to be proud of the effort. So give us your thoughts on last week's game.
Well, the Darlington Tigers, the kids are always going to play hard, and they're going to play for 4 quarters. They're going to play hard for 48 minutes. We definitely did that. We knew this was going to be a very tough ball game. We have a lot of respect for NW Whitfield. They're been a year in, year out playoff team in 4A, and so we knew that'd be a tough task, with them not playing many kids both ways and us having to do that, and had our opportunities to win the ball game. And, we just came up a little bit short. About 3 plays in that game kind of determined that. They had a tip ball on a screen for us and returned it for a pick 6, and that was really the turning point. In the ball game that kind of swung it to their favor. And then we're down inside the red zone 3 times and we only get 3 points out of it. So we got to capitalize in those situations. And we're still our team is still a young team. And it's a new offensive defensive system. We're still figuring out, what we got to get better on. We're still figuring out, what our identity is on offense and defense and what our kids can really do well. And so we felt like we've done that in the first 4 games, and we'll be ready for Dade County with a good plan.
And, Coach, that defensive front for NW Whitfield, especially we kept calling Miles May's name. He was the one who made that play. How do you feel like y'all held up against what seemed to be a really talented defensive front?
Well, we moved the ball up and down the field on them. We had more yards than they did when it came down to it in the stats. And, we just got the ball down inside the 10 and we bogged down and couldn't punch it in. And, that was kind of the difference.
No doubt, Coach. And, of course, this past weekend, our honeymoon baker asking on the cake player of the game was Demarion Floyd. Of course, there were a lot of guys in the running because, again, it was a great team effort by everybody involved. But he had a solid game on both sides of the ball. Of course, had a 20-yard run for a touchdown that really, helped keep guys in the game. And he brings a lot to the table every single week. So what can you say about his performance last week?
Well, Demarion, he plays a tons of snaps for us. He's running the ball. He's on special teams. He's catching the ball out of the backfield. And then he's playing as many snaps as he can handle at corner, playing DB. But Demarion, I think he ended up, 67 yards and a touchdown in the ball game. And, so, what has pleased me about Demarion is he's really matured as the season has went on. He's starting to practice really well. And I thought he had his best week of practice last week. So, pretty cool that you guys are giving the player of the game. But, we always talk about earning it Monday through Thursday. And he really practiced really hard and had some good reps at practice on Monday through Thursday. So I'm glad to see he had some success on Friday.
Coach, before the game, you told us this team liked to pass a lot. Matt and I both thought the secondary tackle, really, they kept everybody in front of them, did a really good job. So talk about the performance of your secondary as a whole last week.
Well, one of our goals is always we want to give up no big plays. We consider a big play a 25-yard play or more, and we didn't give up a big play against Northwest. We always tell kids, hey, a hitch is not going to beat you, especially early in the game. Let's make sure we stay over the top, have great eye discipline, don't let anybody behind you, and we can always rally to the ball on the underneath throws. And so we did a good job of that. And so you don't want to get teams get big plays on you and get momentum. And so we make teams, drive it down the field and have to put together a drive and operate it, I guess you would say. And so that's what we want, no easy plays.
Coach, I'm curious, of course, now you guys have played 4 games, your entire non-region schedule. And I wanted to know, when you look from game 1 to game 4 up to this point, as you get ready to go into region play, Are there any guys that you feel like have advanced their play even, a little bit in terms of progress, maybe even faster than you expected they would going into the season?
Well, all of our guys have made great strides. If you watched us from the scrimmage game all the way until last week's game, Game 4, then you know that our kids are playing with better technique. You can tell they're more confident in the offense and defense. There's less pre-snap penalties and formation-type penalties that we had some issues with earlier. The kids are tackling better, and we're getting off blocks better on defense. So, no one specific kid. I mean, every one of our kids are getting better with all of those things. So,
you mentioned the pick six, and we're sitting up in the booth, and I was like, man, it feels like the Tigers should be up by 3 touchdowns at this point in the game. And then you have a play like that where a kid he just made an athletic play. How do you coach your guys to shake that off and move on to the next play and keep fighting? Because they to that point it was all Tigers.
Well, it's just a mentality that we try to instill in them. And if the Darlington Tigers were sitting here in the booth with us right now, and I asked them, I said, "What's the most important play?" They're all going to say, "The next one, coach, the next one." And so that's something we preach all the time. You've got to have a short conscience in this game, if you will. So big play happens. Our mentality wants to be like, "Well, come back. You try to do it to me again because you're going to have a tough time doing it again." So next play is always the most important.
And, Coach, on that note, obviously we talked earlier, not the results you guys were looking for, but a lot of positives in last week's game, and I know that's got to leave the Tigers hungry to get back out there and, and play another game. So what has the tone been like at practice this week?
It's been really upbeat. We've had good sessions in the weight room. We've had good walkthrough sessions. We've had good film. And like I said, we had 3 good practices so far, and we'll have our 4th practice tomorrow morning at 5:45 a.m., But it's been really good. The kids are excited. Back at home this week, first region game. They'll be excited to have the student section, the bleacher creatures, and the band there, and all the fans. So they're excited.
Absolutely. And, of course, just to kind of review the season, I mean, you guys opened up with the first couple of games at home, and then you had a road game, then a bye week, and then another road game. So it's been a few weeks since you've had the opportunity to play at Chris Hunter Stadium. And so it's going to be super exciting, especially when you consider the fact, and we'll get more into this a little bit later, but Dade County is one of those places. There's not really an easy way to get over there. So it's much better to have this particular game played at home as opposed to going on the road. It's a pretty long road trip.
Yeah, you definitely want to. Anytime we can play at Chris Hunter, we want to do that. And anytime we can stay away from driving to Dade County, we want to do that too. I used to remember going up there in high school, and I thought, going down those mountains, I was like, if the brakes went out on this bus, we're in trouble big time. So, yeah, that's a weird navigating alley to get there.
It is. As a matter of fact, I was broadcasting a basketball game there a year or so ago, and it started snowing during the game. There's a little bit in the forecast, but nobody thought anything was going to happen. And so I had driven over the mountain to get there to go to the game, but on the way back, we had to drive all the way back to Chattanooga so we could get on the interstate and come back. So it's kind of an interesting situation, no doubt about it. Well, we're glad to have you with us. This is the Week 5 edition, believe it or not, of the Coach Grove Show here on the WLAQ YouTube channel and also Facebook Live. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, I just realized we looked over something. So we're going to do 2 things coming up in the next segment. We're going to talk about the black shirt players from this past week, and then we're also going to talk about the Getting to Know Coach segment of the show. So that's all coming up right here next on the Coach Grove Show. Glad to have you with us today, everybody.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we welcome you back to the Coach Grove Show here on the WLAQ YouTube channel and our Facebook Live feed. We've got Coach Groves with us. And to start this segment off, before we get into the Getting to Know Coach Groves segment of the week, we need to review and go back and talk about the black shirt recipients from this week, Coach. Tell us about that.
All right, so our Black Shirt Awards, remember that's we give out 5 of them every week, and that's voted on the coaches on our Sunday morning meetings. And so we give them not only to the the kids that always have their name in the newspaper, even though sometimes it works out that way. But we give it to kids that are maybe under the radar, under the spotlight, that are playing their position the very best and playing it like they're coached to within the scheme of our offense and defense. So this week's offensive black shirt, it went to Demarion Floyd. I know he had 67 yards rushing and a touchdown, but I just thought he just practiced so well last week. And so we were very proud of that. He ran the ball very well. And so, and then in the ball game, they brought some blitzes sometimes into some of our runs, and we didn't quite pick it up quite right. And Demarion made something out of nothing quite a few times. So we just thought that Demarion earned that black shirt for this week on offense.
You know what we need, Ian? I was just thinking about this, what an opportunity it would be. We need a picture of Demarion with his Honeymoon Bakery Award and the black shirt.
And the black shirt, yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
That.
Flash up on the screen.
Yeah, we do that.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and continue with the other side of the ball.
On defense, and this guy's been a very consistent player all year long, but he's continued to get better. But he ended up having a lot of production and played his position really well, and that's Noah Duggan. He ended up having 13 tackles on the night and really did a great job at linebacker. Noah's a junior linebacker, number 23. So Noah Duggan was the defensive.
I noticed when you sent the defensive stats over, he's your leading tackler on the year by a fairly decent margin.
Yeah, that he plays that Sam linebacker, which is one of the most important parts of our defense. He's got a real lot of tough jobs. He's got to be great in run fits and run downs. He's got a pivotal spot playing that outside linebacker in his pass drops. We ask him to do a lot as far as blitzing off the edge. Sometimes he walks up and he's going to play on the tight end and have to be physical in that aspect. So in my defense, that's kind of a pivotal part, and he's done a really good job playing that this year.
All right, Coach, we're going to shift gears a little bit and move on to the Getting to Know Coach question of the week. And this week should be a fun one. I know we'll have some input into this one all around the room. But who were your favorite athletes growing up, Coach?
All right, before we get to that, I want to make sure I recognize these other kids.
Oh, please. I'm sorry.
I got my special teams black shirt, okay? So we got a sophomore kicker. He's from Nigeria. His name's Ade DeSalis, okay? So Hendrix Jones had a little patella tendonitis in his knee and couldn't kick off. And so Ade went in there, and some of those deep, high kicks on kickoffs that were really good, he provided that for us. And so we gave the special teams black shirt to Ade. So he's going to be a phenomenal kicker. He's getting stronger in the weight room, and he's got already a strong leg. With a little more coaching, he's going to do really well as a special teams threat. On Scout O, sophomore wide receiver Jace Donaldson. He's got that Donaldson name. That's the Ray Donaldson family. We had a player at Rome, Xavier Donaldson, X-Man. That's his lineage there. And so Jace is doing a fantastic job. And I think if he keeps on working, he may find a little more playing time on Friday. But he practiced really well as far as running routes and simulating Hudson Gray, the number 2 receiver from Northwest. It was really good. And, we held him to 2 catches and 7 yards, and Jace kind of helped simulate that guy last week, so he got the Scout O. And then Ty Wood, a freshman linebacker. Ty Wood got the Scout D. He's in there every time. I've got to make him get out and let other guys get reps, and so Ty did a great job playing linebacker. And
I'm told otherwise known as Boomstick. I met his parents at Buc-ee's a few weeks ago and said that, and I asked Coach about this earlier. He couldn't tell me which coach did it, but somebody nicknamed him that from the scrimmage game just ahead of the season. So we're waiting on the right moment in the game to be able to break that out.
And I think we've decided that we should have a high school football scoreboard show live from Buc-ee's, because everyone stops there. Like you see every fan base, every band, groups of cheerleaders, everybody stops there on the way back. So
it's become quite a tradition when you got to go up that direction, no doubt about it. Well, let's see. Have we completed the black shirt? I'm sorry.
We got the black shirt
there, man. My bad. I got a little excited there because I think this is going to be a fun question today. It's going to get a lot of conversation going, no doubt about it. So with that said, we will now move on to the Getting to Know Coach question of the week, which is, Coach, who were your favorite athletes when you were growing up?
Well, we hadn't talked about this yet, but I know me and Ian before the show were talking about just how great in the mid '80s to the mid '90s of how great of a sports era we grew up in. And so obviously I'm still a sports fan now, but I just feel like there was just such a golden era of sports for being a kid, for watching football, basketball, and baseball, which I played all three, in high school. And so, whatever sport was at the time, that was my favorite. So I dove into it, playing it, and also I watched it as much as I possibly could. So, Favorite athletes growing up, if we're going to go football first. Of course, I had Tecmo Bowl, and, you always try to pick your favorite guys. And so obviously there's, the Bears defense back then was awesome. And so Mike Singletary, I was a linebacker. So I loved to watch Mike Singletary in that Bears defense. So he was kind of one of my favorite athletes growing up. Christian Okoye, if y'all remember Christian Okoye that played for the Chiefs, just a huge, like 6'3", 250 running back that ran a 4.4 40, and so he was always fun to watch because he was just running over people, and so he was kind of one of my favorites. And then I think everybody likes Barry Sanders, and you watch Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, and some of those guys in football growing up were all guys that, you kind of wanted to be like in the backyard. Basketball, obviously Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, those guys were just head and shoulders above everybody else at the time. So those are my favorites. I had those posters on my wall. And then, baseball, I had Greg Maddux. I had Bo Jackson poster in my wall growing up. And then, watching baseball, I always tried to play. When I played, I wanted to emulate Pete Rose. I just thought the way he dove and the way he played the game. And, when he got walked, he sprinted to first base, and he was known as kind of Charlie Hustle. And I always just loved that mentality for baseball players. And so those are kind of some of the guys I looked up to growing up.
All right, we're going to ask the hosts here. What about you, Ian?
Oh, man. I mean, you nailed a lot of them. I was a diehard John Elway fan. I like to suffer, so I watched him lose all those Super Bowls in the 80s, and it just broke my heart. But I loved those Broncos teams. LT and was it Carl Banks? Was he the other linebacker for those New York Giants teams? Man, they were nasty. They were fun to watch. The Bears, I mean, they did the Super Bowl shuffle, so how could you not love the Bears? And Walter Payton was fun to watch. But to me, from a running back standpoint, Barry Sanders he's the GOAT. Like, he may not have the numbers, but that guy ran behind an offensive line that was nowhere near as talented as say, an Emmitt Smith in Dallas, and he broke ankles every Sunday. So that would cover football. And then, Jordan, Bird, I was a huge Dominique fan. The Hawks could never get over the hump. But and I liked watching the Showtime Lakers too, man. But my dad was a huge Celtics fan. So we pulled for the Celtics when they weren't playing the Hawks. And then as far as baseball is concerned, it was Braves and Cubs that were constantly on the television. So I loved Andre Dawson. Got to meet him a few years ago at I happened to be in Chicago. And we were driving in the suburbs, and it said, meet Andre Dawson from 11 to 2 at this little credit union. And we walked in and got to meet Andre Dawson. He was the man. So,
the Hawk.
Yeah, the Hawk.
That's epic. And, of course, back in the day, you had WGN, so you could watch, the Cubs games on television and everything. So I know a lot of people, in other areas were fans of the Cubs during that time.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd have to say baseball. 3 guys stand out. Dale Murphy, had the opportunity as a kid to meet him when he come around with the Braves caravan. And not only was he a great baseball player, he's just a good human being and somebody that you could look up to. Kevin Mitchell, who played for the San Francisco Giants. Everybody remembers from a time period the barehanded catch that he made. That was so epic. I used to have a flip book of that looked like an umpire's brush. It was pretty neat. Then Nolan Ryan, as far as pitchers are concerned, I always kind of like the hard-throwing power pitchers or whatever. Basketball, Michael Jordan, Dominique. Spud Webb, always admired him quite a bit. And let's see, football-wise, when I was a kid, probably 6, 7 years old, I used to tell people I was Herschel Walker. And because I just, when I was a kid, my dad got me his autograph picture and everything, and I was a Herschel Walker fan. So I guess those are mine.
I'm going to put you all on the spot. Were there any athletes you rooted against?
Coach?
Any teams or athletes?
You just, in sports, I think you always got to pull against the Yankees, the Dodgers, those guys, they can, not big of a fan.
Yeah.
How about the Phillies?
Oh, yeah, not a Phillies fan.
Of course, they took Dale Murphy from us, so that hurt my feelings quite a bit as a kid.
Yeah, I can't root for the Mets either.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Though I did like those, Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden. Those teams were fun to watch.
No doubt about it. Well, that's going to wrap up our Getting to Know Coach segment of the week. We're going to take another break, and when we get done, the rest of the show, we're going to talk about the upcoming matchup. Region play starts this week. It's hard to believe it that we're at that point of the season, but we are, and it's about time for the rubber to meet the road coming up this week. So we'll take a break. We're glad you're with us. This is the Coach Grove Show. We'll return.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, folks, we welcome you back to the Coach Grove Show here on the WLAQ YouTube channel and also Facebook Live feed. And, Coach, in this segment, we're going to talk about Dade County coming up, get to start region play, as we referenced earlier, at home at Chris Hunter Stadium. And so after 4 games in non-region schedule, getting region play started. And we already talked a little bit about how the energy level and excitement level has been in practice this week. But let's talk a little bit about Dade County. Of course, Coach Poston came in a few years ago. Dade County kind of been struggling for several years. In the last couple of seasons, they've posted winning records, made it to the playoffs. So this is a team that's really been headed in the right direction over the last few years. So first of all, just tell us your initial thoughts about this team.
Well, when you watch Dade County on film, the first thing you'll see is they're a physical football team, and they're kind of a chippy football team. So they like to play physical brand of football. They're coached really well. And of course, they're very similar to us. They've got, some guys that play both ways, quite a few guys that play both ways. And so I think it's going to be a good matchup in that aspect. And so I think it's going to be a good physical, hard-nosed football game.
Yeah, Coach, you talk about the numbers, and you've played some bigger schools, and whether it was in a scrimmage or last week against Northwest Whitfield. But now that you're in region play and you've got a kind of an even playing field when it comes to roster size, how do you feel that conditioning and everything else that you've instilled in your team is going to benefit you going into region play?
Well, it's definitely not going to hurt. We're going to be in a good position. I feel like our kids are ready to play 48 minutes and play very hard because we've been tested and we've done that. So, week 5, this ought to be getting easier to play harder for longer. And so I expect our Tigers to come out and do that.
Now, I know when you look at the record for Dade County this year, they're 1-3 start, but then you look under the hood, they played some really tough teams. And so this is a team that will be pretty seasoned coming into the matchup. Obviously, they got to take the show on the road, so to speak, play at Chris Hunter Stadium. I know the fans are going to be into it loud and all that kind of stuff. But tell us a little bit about this team and some of the strengths that you see when you're watching them on film.
Well, we've already talked about they're a physical, chippy football team. They're very well coached. They know what they're doing. They got a good scheme, offense and defensive wise, and they give you multiple looks on offense that can possibly give you some trouble if you don't communicate and talk and get lined up correctly. So,
are there any players specifically on their team that you're going to be watching out for?
Yeah, so on offense, what you're going to get out of Dade, and one of the things that makes them a little more difficult to defend than others is they basically have 5 skilled guys out there at all times. Now, they'll go from everything from empty formations and quads, empty formations, shotgun formations, to 2 tight ends with the same personnel group. And so you've got to have built in some things on defense to be able to handle those types of things. Normally people are going to go 2 tight ends, they'll sub them in, and then you can make your calls accordingly. But they do everything with the same personnel groupings, which makes it a little unique and a little bit different on how we approach the game plan.
As far as defense is concerned, how do they line up on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, they're going to be 4-3 on defense, and they're going to play cover 2 behind it in the secondary, and they're going to bring single dogs, blitzing linebackers, and sometimes they'll bring even a 6-man pressure and play zone behind it. But they're just very sound and fundamental. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what their coach has coached them to do. And so, some guys that'll stand out that y'all get to see is the defensive end, number 56, Eli Kimball, who also plays offensive tackle. He's 6'4", senior, 6'4", 215. D-tackle, number 61, Connor Cash, is a junior, 5'11", 270. Their will linebacker, which is also their starting running back, is Landon Williams, and he's a state championship wrestler. He's 6'2", 205, and he's a good player on both sides of the ball. Then you got cornerback number 9, and also their best receiver, Braylon Sullivan, who's 6'3", 190, receiver and cornerback. So the little number 27, Jax Gwynn, he's 5'9", 205. He's kind of their their guy that they use him at tight end, they use him at fullback, they even split him out and let him play wide out. So he's kind of their adjuster guy. They move around and do a lot of different things with. So it'll be we're going to have to be great at formation recognition.
And you've touched on some of these things already, but as far as getting into region play, obviously everybody wants to get started off on the good foot, pick up a victory. So what are the things that the Darlington Tigers have to take care of and do at a high level in order to come away with a victory to start region play this week, Coach?
Well, 3 things I always tell them. I said, 1, we're going to win the hitting game. We got to be more physical than them. That means you got to play lower, you got to play harder, you got to play better technique. The second thing is we got to take care of the football. Can't turn it over. We've got to win the turnover battle, and ball security and taking care of the football is a premium at our practice, and it's a huge point of emphasis. And then the third is we want to win we want to win and make big plays on special teams. And so we think we got if we can do what we do, we got some advantages there. And so win the hitting game, take care of the football, make big plays on special teams, and I think the Darlington Tigers will win this one.
And Coach, you seemed to stay pretty healthy last week. Are there any Tigers we can expect to see back this week?
All right, so you're going to get Jack Chandler's going to be back. He's been a 3-year starter at Darlington, and so he'll be back at center and play a little bit of D-line. But having him back this week is going to be huge. We need more depth there, and that's going to be huge getting him back.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we have for today, but this has been another fun edition of the Coach Grove Show here on the WLAQ YouTube channel and Facebook Live. And also, as we always say, Coach, we really appreciate you giving us some time. I know you shoot over to the radio station after practice, sometimes on 2 wheels and trying to scarf down some dinner as you were tonight and that kind of thing. And I know the fans really appreciate you being here and giving the listeners and everything what's going on with the Tigers. So thank you so much, man. We appreciate you.
Well, I thank you guys for your time. You guys do a great job, and thank you for supporting the Darlington Tigers.
It's a pleasure, no doubt about it. Ian, anything else as we get ready to wrap up?
I just want to volunteer Matt to do push-ups, so score a lot of points.
Oh, gosh. I will have to decline. We might have to work on that a little bit. We didn't discuss this before we start the show, I'll say that.
Yeah, we'll trade it off.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. We got to think of something else. All right. Well, anyway, thank you all for watching today and viewing and everything. We appreciate you tuning in. This has been the Coach Grove Show, and we'll end it like we do every week, man. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
All right, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Coach Grove Show here on WLAQ. Hope you have a great week, everybody. Make sure to get to Chris Hunter Stadium and watch the Tigers open up region play against Dade County. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be awesome. You definitely want to be there. All right, folks, tune in next week for the Coach Grove Show. That's going to wrap it up for today.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Coach Groves Show. We invite you to join us again next week as we discuss all things Darlington football with head coach Wayne Groves. Go Tigers!